Hello everyone, this is Kona and thank you for tuning into this video. Now let's talk about this whole YouTube content ID and copyright issue that's been happening for the past week or so, where a lot of these people have been getting flagged for content ID for particularly gaming videos, and a lot of gaming channels seem to be very upset about this. Now, I know a lot of things have been said already about this topic, and there's a bunch of videos out there you can go check them out. But I would like to add my opinion about this after seeing this kind of happen for about a week or so. Now, first off, I'd like to say that I'm not here to give legal advice. I'm not trained in that kind of stuff. This is just my opinion about this subject. So first off, I would like to say that I haven't really been hit by this issue too much because I make a lot of TF2 videos, and I'm happy to say that Valve seems to be okay with people making YouTube videos about Valve-related content and monetizing it. In fact, I'll put a link in the description of a website where Valve says it's like this seems to be okay and they're okay with this issue. I know for the longest time people have been on the Steam forums and they've been asking people, you know, asking everyone, like, is it okay to monetize this video? I'm going to be playing TF2 or I'm going to be playing, you know, Left 4 Dead or Dota or something like that, and people were wondering, are we allowed to monetize these YouTube videos? And no one from Valve really gave a direct answer in those forums. It was just a bunch of people just talking back and forth. But Valve has posted an actual website that states their policy on people who make videos and monetize from it, so you can go check it out. According to my interpretation, it seems okay to take Valve stuff. Oh, jeez, so just cars going by. It seems okay to take Valve stuff and actually make YouTube videos or just videos in general and put it out there and actually monetize it. It's when you use other things that don't belong to Valve, then you're going to have to get permission from those content owners. Alright, the next thing I would like to talk about is this content ID system from YouTube, and the fact that a lot of people seem to be very upset about it because it's flagging their videos, it's claiming copyright on their videos, and they can't get monetized. And for some people, they make a living on YouTube. I don't, but they make a living on YouTube, and it affects them. It affects their real life. And so, you know, sure, they're angry about it, but in a way, I can see what YouTube is trying to do here, and I actually think this content ID thing is a good thing. Not really a bad thing. People think it's a bad thing because when it affects them directly, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, they're taking money away and they're stopping me from posting videos and stuff like that. But in the overall, you know, YouTube is probably, and Google is probably thinking ahead the future of this website, and they want to make sure that, you know, they have systems in place to kind of cover their ass. So I think this content ID system is hopefully in the long run going to be a good thing, but people seem to be upset about the implementation of the content ID system rather than the idea of the content ID and copyright thing. Personally, I think it's okay to try to protect your copyrighted material. I think that's fine. I mean, if I was a company, I would be upset if people were making money off of stuff that I worked on. I you know, spent years working on, and people just take it and start making money off of it. Yeah, that's kind of an issue. Now, when stuff like this happens with copyright, people like to claim, you know, we have the right to fair use, and they use that kind of thing to get around this kind of stuff. And when people say right to fair use, I was kind of wondering about that, so I decided to do a little research about fair use as a right. And I don't know, maybe you can correct me on this, but I couldn't find many places that said that fair use is an actual right of someone to actually use copyrighted content. It's been saying that fair use is a defense, and you can use it as a defense in court against a copyright infringement claim. In other words, the copyright owner has to claim that you are using or you're infringing on the copyrights of something, and from there you can use fair use as a defense. Now, what's interesting about fair use is that it's kind of an iffy subject because it has to be decided on a case-by-case basis. This is something that needs to be talked out with all the evidence from both sides, and a judge has to determine whether someone can claim fair use as a defense. And it varies from case to case. There's very few times where the cases are similar. Everyone's under very different circumstances, and the judge has to make a call. And they usually make a call on the 4 I guess the four factors that are used to kind of weigh whether fair use can be used as a defense. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description to what YouTube actually says. Like, there's actually an FAQ where it asks the question, what is fair use? And it says that it's determined by four main factors, and it has to be determined in court. And these four factors basically boil down to, is the work transformative? Does it change the original copyright enough so that it's doing something different rather than it's replacing it or superseding it? The other factor is the nature of the work, whether it's fictional or non-fictional or factual in that case. If it contains facts and stuff like that, then maybe they'll see it as a educational type of thing and they'll say it's okay. But if it's fictional, then it's more likely going to be like, oh well, they're going to have to decide, is this really fair use or not? Because you're taking something that's fictional and someone's ideas, and yeah, that might not be so good. Another thing is the amount of copyrighted material that you actually take. Now, I know people say, oh, if I use this 10-second clip, it might be okay. It's 10-second rule or something like that. And the thing is, it's really hard to find somewhere that says you can use this particular amount. Like I said, when this stuff goes to court, they determine whether or not all this stuff is valid, and they weigh it. And if you use too much of it, it might be like, whoa, you're giving away too much. And this is one of the issues that I have with Let's Players, which I'll get into in a second. But yeah, if you take too much of it, they might see it as, oh well, you're taking too much, that's not right. Or if you take a little bit, then it'd be like, oh, okay, well, you're only taking a little bit, so it's fine. But it doesn't seem like they have like, oh, you can only use this exact amount. It has to be determined in court. And the last one is the effect on the potential market. And it's almost like uploading a movie like day one when it comes out with a camera or something like that. Could this affect what the earnings that the company could make? Could this affect them economically and financially? And yeah, sometimes it does. When you release something day one, people would rather have the free stuff rather than go and actually pay for it. So sometimes, yes, it's gonna substantially affect the copyright owner's ability to profit off of this kind of stuff. Now, back to Let's Players and my issue with Let's Plays. I think Let's Plays are sort of okay depending on the nature of the Let's Play. Now, I mean, if it's like a little snippet of their entire thing compressed down into like a 15-minute video, I think that's okay, because you're only taking little bits and pieces. You're not giving away the whole game. But when you make a beginning to end Let's Play, that's the thing that I really have an issue with, because it's almost like you're giving away an entire movie. Think of it like that. It's okay to use maybe a snippet here and there to do a movie review or something, but if you were to take the entire movie and upload it, of course that's not good. Of course we think that's not good. And I think with full beginning to end Let's Plays, that becomes kind of an issue, because you're giving away a lot of things. Now, it determines what I also think it determines what kind of video game we're talking about here. And I think this will mainly affect what I like to call story-driven games. There are games out there that are sort of like Let's Plays, but they're like multiplayer, and the experience is always different. So I think in that case, it's okay. But when you have a story-driven game, for example, The Last of Us, Beyond Two Souls, that kind of stuff, where it's very heavily story-driven, like that's the main thing. It's sort of not about the gameplay. It's about the story, right? If you play that from beginning to end, you're giving away a lot of stuff from that game. And someone might go, sure, you can add commentary to it to add your own personal thing. And in a way, you can argue that, yes, that is transformative. You are adding your own live commentary over the Let's Play, and that could be transformative. But you got to think again, you have to weigh the other parts of these four factors of fair use. And one of them is the amount that you take and you show. If you show the entire thing from start to finish, I feel that that's kind of a lot. That's kind of excessive, and perhaps start to finish Let's Plays, those are the ones that are going to be really like those are the ones that the copyright people are, I think, we're going to go after, because they're giving away their hard work, hard earned, and their hard work that they've been trying to make for probably years, and trying to create this story and tell this story through a video game. And now that's another thing I want to talk about, is how I look at some of these story-driven games. I don't know if other people look at it like this when it comes to story-driven games, but I kind of compare them to movies, books, TV shows, and stuff like that. I think with story-driven games, the emphasis is on the story, right? It's about telling the story, and they copyright when these video game makers, they copyright their stuff. They're copywriting the medium of which they are telling the story. It's kind of like the idea that you can't copyright an idea. You can copyright the expression of an idea. So you can copyright a movie, TV shows, books, that kind of stuff. Those are expressions or media of which to express an idea. But you can't copyright the idea itself. And I look at video games the same way, where they are expressions of an idea, expressions of a story, and stuff like that. I think should be protected as much as movies are. And you know, in some of these games, they're really close to movies. They're basically playable movies, and they have some strong themes in them, very good stories. Sometimes they're not even about the gameplay, and it's a really simple gameplay, but it's about having an impact on people through storytelling. So yeah, I think those story-driven based Let's Plays are gonna face some issues in the future, because they're gonna be looking at that and be like, oh, is that fair use or not? Alright, I kind of want to go back to the content ID thing, because since a lot of people have been getting hit by this content ID, and like I said before, I think people might be mad at the implementation, but also YouTube might think that the implementation is okay, because when I looked at the content ID and what it's actually for, discussing this whole thing about fair use, and the fact that in each case of, if you want to claim fair use as a defense, you have to weigh these 4 different factors, and that can be difficult sometimes. When you think about the content ID system, it's not saying that you can't claim fair use as a defense. You still can. But the content ID system, I think, is it's somewhat working as intended, because it is a system designed to identify copyrighted content, and that's it. That's all it's supposed to do. It is not there to judge what type of video it is, whether it falls under fair use and we should let it go. That's not what the system is for. What the system is for is to just identify copyrighted content, which is why they're using these, matching things where, copyright holders can submit content that they want to say, we have copyrights to this, and YouTube just does a scan match kind of thing. They can do that, and that's fine, and it identifies it. And in most cases, jeez, it's a car. In most cases, the content ID does a good job matching it. It does say that you are using this song, or you are using this movie trailer, or this footage that is protected by the copyright owner. And that's fine. And I think that's I don't see any problem really with that, because it's doing its job. Whether or not you can claim fair use as defense is not up to that content ID system. It's not smart enough to determine that kind of thing. It's not a super AI thing that can make this judgment call. A person in the end has to be able to make this judgment call, and that's when fair use can be used as defense in court, where we have human beings determining whether this is whether fair use can be used as defense. So I understand that a lot of people are upset about this content ID system flagging a bunch of their videos, but I think in most cases they can't deny the fact that yes, they did use it. They did use that material. They might have thought it was okay because of the context of which they were using it, but I feel like the content ID system is not there to determine the context of the use of this copyrighted material. It's there to determine whether the content is used in the first place. It's just used. So if there's a match, boom, flag, and that's really all there is to it. I know a lot of people are mad about the fact that the companies once they flag something as copyright, right? Once they claim it as infringement, they can do whatever they want to it. They can either block it, they can monetize it, they can do whatever. And the thing is, this is YouTube's policy, and remember, you're using YouTube's website, so it's hard to argue that kind of stuff, whether that's fair or not. I mean, maybe you have to go to court for that kind of stuff, but I feel that this is YouTube's website. We're using it. It's their policies. When we create an account, we probably agreed to something. I mean, when you create an account, it probably says, like, do you agree to these terms? And who reads that, right? But, you know, it might be protected somewhere that says that if you do this kind of stuff, I have to double check. I'm not exactly sure, but you can't complain about these policies that they're making because we are using YouTube services, and a lot of us are very grateful because I know there's a lot of people who have been having huge success on YouTube where they can actually do YouTube full time and they enjoy it. They love it. And so, you know, more power to them to do that kind of stuff. But, you know, again, realize we are on YouTube. It's their site. They call the rules. It's their business. We have to abide by it. So we may not agree with it sometimes, but that's why there are other video services out there that are willing to take other people and host their content. So those are my thoughts on this whole content ID and copyright issue on YouTube that involves gaming channels. And I think a lot of gaming channels are just not used to this. You know, they've been under the MCNs, the multi-channel networks, and really didn't have to worry about this now. All of a sudden they're getting flagged for this kind of stuff, and they're just kind of not used to it. And I think with a lot of things, a lot of big changes, when this happens, it just takes time to get used to the new system. Kind of like the new YouTube layout, the one that sort of looks like Facebook, still trying to get used to it, sort of. But, you know, eventually we'll come around to it. The new comment system, which recently came out, I think people are starting to get used to it. They may not agree with it fully, but just give it time. It's going to be normal. And the same thing with this content ID thing and this copyright thing. Give it time, and it's just going to be like, yeah, this is kind of what we do here. This is how things run on YouTube. So we're just going to have to sort of deal with it. Now, my question for you guys is, what are your thoughts on these issues? I know the content and copyright thing is huge. It's a big issue. There's a lot of things to talk about. But I'd like to know your thoughts on, you know, this issue, and in particular, the ones that I mentioned about things like fair use and, you know, beginning to end Let's Plays that are story driven, that kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day. Cars.